The discovery. In a galaxy filled with strange planets and even stranger beings, the Zarnok Empire stood tall among the stars. Their fleets were vast and powerful, equipped with advanced technology and weapons. The Zarnoks had conquered many worlds, and their leader, Commander Varnok, was known for his cleverness and strength. He prided himself on outsmarting his enemies, and he expected no less from his soldiers. One day, while discussing strategy with his trusted officers, Commander Varnok overheard something curious. An alien trader spoke of a peculiar warship belonging to humanity. Varnok's ears perked up. Humanity was a young species, still finding its way in the universe, and their technology was often seen as primitive. The rumors about this warship were intriguing. What could be so special about a human ship? Varnok thought. The trader described the warship as strange and absurd, unlike anything he had ever seen. "It's colorful and chaotic," he said. "Humans built it with parts from different machines. It looks more like a floating junkyard than a warship." The officers' laughter echoed in the room. Commander Varnok felt a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "I must see this ship for myself," he declared. "Prepare the fleet. We will visit Earth and uncover the truth about this so-called warship." The next day, the Zarnok fleet set course for Earth. As they traveled through space, Varnok's officers joked and laughed about the human warship. They believed it would be an easy target. "How could such a ridiculous ship pose any threat to us?" One officer chuckled. Varnok, however, felt a twinge of uncertainty. He had learned long ago not to underestimate any enemy, no matter how strange they seemed. When the fleet arrived at Earth, the planet looked vibrant and full of life. The Zarnoks had studied human culture from afar, but witnessing it up close was different. Humans were busy, bustling about their daily lives, unaware of the powerful fleet hovering above them. Varnok watched as people moved with purpose, their eyes filled with determination. It intrigued him, but he quickly pushed the thought aside. "We're here to find that warship," he reminded his crew. "Let's not get distracted." After landing on Earth, Varnok and his officers made their way to a military base where the warship was said to be docked. As they approached, Varnok's heart raced with anticipation. He imagined a massive ship, powerful and sleek, ready for battle. But as they rounded the corner, what lay before them made him stop in his tracks. The warship was a sight to behold, but not in the way Varnok had expected. It was small and oddly shaped, with patches of paint in various colors. Some parts looked shiny and new, while others were rusty and worn. Pipes and wires jutted out at strange angles, and the whole structure seemed like a hodgepodge of different designs. The Zarnok commander's eyes widened. "Is this really a warship?" he muttered in disbelief. His officers erupted in laughter. "This is what humanity has to offer." One officer scoffed. "It looks like a floating scrap pile." Varnok tried to remain serious, but he couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed. This absurd ship was not what he had imagined. How could humans rely on something so ridiculous? He was about to turn away when he noticed the human crew approaching. The humans were small compared to the Zarnoks, but their faces were filled with pride. The captain of the ship stepped forward, wearing a uniform that looked slightly too big for him. "Welcome to the U.S. Wild Goose," he said with a grin. "We're excited to show you our ship." The captain's enthusiasm was infectious, and Varnok found himself curious despite the absurdity of the warship. "Show us what it can do," he ordered, trying to maintain his air of authority. The humans wasted no time. They began a demonstration, and Varnok watched as they activated various systems. To his surprise, the ship sprang to life. Colorful lights blinked and hummed, and strange sounds filled the air. The humans moved swiftly, coordinating their actions with impressive teamwork. At first, Varnok was skeptical. "What good is this mess?" he thought. But as the demonstration continued, he began to notice something. The warship's design, while chaotic, had a certain charm. It was flexible, able to maneuver in ways that more traditional ships could not. The humans demonstrated quick turns, and unexpected bursts of speed that left Varnak's officers speechless. As the captain proudly explained each feature, Varnak felt a strange sense of respect growing within him. The humans were clever, finding ways to make their warship work despite its absurd appearance. They had turned what seemed like a joke into something functional. The demonstration concluded and Varnak stood in silence, contemplating what he had witnessed. The warship was not what he expected. It was more than just a silly design. It represented human ingenuity and determination. Perhaps there is more to humanity than I realized, he thought. But Varnak quickly shook his head, trying to dismiss the feeling. It's just a ship. We are the Zarnuk Empire, and we will not be defeated by a floating junkyard. Yet, deep down, he knew that this absurd warship was just the beginning of something much bigger. As he looked around at the human crew, he sensed that he was about to learn valuable lessons about his own assumptions and the true nature of humanity. Varnak had entered Earth with the intention of proving the inferiority of humans, but now he was faced with a reality that challenged everything he thought he knew. Little did he know, this was only the first step in an unexpected journey that would change his perspective forever. The approach. As the sun set over Earth, casting a warm glow across the military base, Commander Varnak found himself grappling with a mix of emotions. He had always seen humanity as a lesser species, but the absurd warship and its enthusiastic crew were making him rethink his assumptions. His officers, still caught up in their laughter, seemed oblivious to the realization slowly dawning on their commander. "Let's take a closer look," Varnak finally commanded, shaking off his doubts. He needed to assess the warship for himself and ensure his fleet's superiority was not in jeopardy. With his officers in tow, he stepped forward to inspect the U.S. Wild Goose, determined to find flaws in its design. The closer Varnak got, the more details he noticed. The ship's hull was covered with a patchwork of colors, each telling a story of its own. Some areas appeared to have been hastily repaired, while others had bright murals painted over the metal. Varnak wondered why the humans had chosen such a chaotic design. "What purpose does this serve?" he asked, turning to the captain. The captain, a young man with bright eyes, beamed with pride. "Every mark on this ship represents a mission we've completed. Each color shows a victory or a lesson learned. It's not just a warship, it's our history." Varnak raised an eyebrow, surprised by the passion in the captain's voice. "You paint your failures?" he asked, skeptical. "Absolutely," the captain replied. "We learn from our mistakes, and we wear them proudly. It reminds us not to repeat them." Varnak was taken aback. This human had a unique perspective, one he hadn't expected. He had always believed that showing weakness was a sign of defeat, but these humans seemed to thrive on their experiences. With a slight nod, he indicated for the crew to continue their demonstration. As the human crew began to prepare the ship for a short flight, Varnak took a step back to observe. He noticed how they worked together, shouting instructions and laughing as they moved. They seemed to enjoy the chaos of the operation, something the Zarnuks would never have done in a serious situation. Their camaraderie made Varnak question the rigidity of his own crew. "Commander, we're ready for takeoff," the captain announced, his voice filled with excitement. The crew climbed aboard, and Varnak followed, curiosity overcoming his initial skepticism. As the engines roared to life, the ship shook, and the colorful lights on the dashboard blinked wildly. Varnak gripped a nearby railing, unsure of what to expect. He had seen many advanced ships in his time, but none had ever felt quite like this. With a sudden lurch, the U.S. Wild Goose lifted off the ground and soared into the sky. The view from the cockpit was breathtaking. The blue and green of Earth faded below them as they ascended into the stars. Varnak's heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "This is just a human ship," he reminded himself. "It can't be as fast or agile as a Zarnuk vessel." As they reached a cruising altitude, the captain began demonstrating the ship's maneuvers. "Watch this," he shouted. With a swift flick of a switch, The warship twisted and turned, darting through the air like a playful bird. Varnock watched, eyes wide, as the ship executed moves that defied logic. "Impressive, isn't it?" the captain said, glancing at Varnock with a grin. Varnock tried to maintain his composure. "It is unexpected," he admitted, unable to suppress a hint of admiration. "Just wait until we really put it through its paces," the captain said, his excitement contagious. With that, the crew began to test the ship's abilities further. They engaged in simulated maneuvers, dodging imaginary enemy fire and employing tactics that made the most of their ship's strange design. Varnock found himself captivated by their creativity. Each twist and turn seemed to be a dance, a celebration of human spirit and determination. As the flight continued, the humans shared stories of their past battles and the lessons learned along the way. Varnock listened intently, fascinated by their resilience. They spoke of times they faced impossible odds and how they used their absurd ship to turn the tide in their favor. The stories were filled with laughter and bravery, and Varnock felt a growing respect for these humans who dared to face challenges head-on. "Why do you take such risks?" he finally asked, his curiosity overwhelming him. "Your ship looks like it could fall apart at any moment. Why not build something stronger and more reliable?" The captain paused for a moment, then replied with sincerity, "Because strength isn't just about the materials you use. It's about the heart behind it. We believe in each other, and that gives us strength." Varnock considered this carefully. He had always focused on the external power of his fleet, but these humans were teaching him that true strength often came from within. As the flight came to an end, Varnock realized he had a lot to learn from humanity. The absurd warship, once a source of mockery, was now a symbol of something much greater. It represented their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight against the odds. As they landed back at the base, Varnock felt a sense of unease mixed with respect. He was a commander of the Zarnuk Empire, and yet he found himself admiring a crew of humans in a ship that was everything he believed a warship should not be. The absurdity of it all was almost poetic. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of his journey, a journey that would challenge his views and reshape his understanding of what it truly meant to be strong. Commander Varnock stepped off the warship, his mind racing with thoughts. The absurdity of the U.S. wild goose had opened his eyes to a new perspective. What would the future hold for him and the Zarnuks in a universe where humanity thrived against all odds? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: this encounter would change everything. The challenge. The following days were filled with an unsettling buzz among the Zarnuk fleet. Commander Varnock couldn't shake off the surprise he felt after the flight in the U.S. Wild Goose. His officers were still laughing at the ship's ridiculous design, but the commander was deep in thought. The absurdity of the humans' approach to warfare and their ship lingered in his mind, igniting a curiosity that was hard to ignore. In the command center, Varnock gathered his top officers. They discussed their strategy for the upcoming exercises, but he sensed an undercurrent of doubt among them. His crew was still convinced of their superiority, yet he felt a shift within himself, a realization that perhaps they were missing something important about humanity. "Commander, why are we wasting time on these simulations?" one of his officers, Reluk, asked, impatience creeping into his tone. "We have superior ships and technology. Why don't we just crush them?" Varnock frowned. "It's not just about technology. These humans have shown us something we didn't expect. We need to understand them better before we make any moves." "Understand them?" Reluk scoffed. "They fly a ridiculous ship and think their history is painted on its side. What do we have to learn from them?" "Everything," Varnock replied firmly. "They have faced countless challenges and found ways to overcome them. I want us to challenge them to a friendly competition, a test of skills and strategy. We need to see how we measure up." His officers exchanged glances, unsure of their commander's judgment. Reluk crossed his arms defiantly. "And if they win, what will that say about us?" "It will say that we are wise enough to learn from others," Varnock insisted. "I want to extend the invitation to Captain Harris and his crew. We'll see how they handle a real challenge." After some hesitation, the officers reluctantly agreed. Varnock felt a thrill of anticipation. He knew that this challenge would reveal much about humanity, and perhaps a little about himself. The next day, Varnock contacted Captain Harris to discuss the competition. He was met with enthusiasm from the human captain, who quickly accepted the challenge. The humans, it seemed, were always eager for a chance to prove themselves. "We'll do it in 3 phases, Harris suggested. First, a test of speed and agility. Then, a strategic maneuvering exercise. Finally, we'll engage in a simulated battle. How does that sound?" "Agreed," Varnock replied, intrigued by the humans' eagerness. As preparations began, both crews set to work, each readying their ships for the competition. Varnock's officers practiced their maneuvers with strict precision, while the humans seemed to embrace a more chaotic style. The difference in approaches was evident, and it only deepened Varnock's curiosity. The day of the challenge arrived, and the air was thick with excitement. A small crowd gathered on the observation deck of the Zarnak command ship, eager to witness the unusual event. Varnock stood at the forefront, watching as the U.S. Wild Goose and the Zarnak flagship prepared for the first phase, speed and agility. "On your marks," shouted a human officer, his voice filled with enthusiasm. 3, 2, 1, go. Both ships shot forward, the Wild Goose moving in a way that made it appear almost carefree. It darted left and right, executing loops and twists that left Varnock breathless. His flagship was powerful and sleek, but it felt almost clumsy in comparison. As the 2 ships raced, Varnock found himself rooting for the humans despite his better judgment. They were a sight to behold, unpredictable and full of spirit. As they rounded a corner, the Wild Goose spun elegantly, showing off its quirky design. Varnock could see the crew inside, their faces filled with joy as they maneuvered through the course. Just when it seemed like the Wild Goose might take the lead, the Zarnak ship surged ahead with its raw power, crossing the finish line first. The crowd erupted in cheers for their victory. But Varnock felt a strange mix of emotions. He couldn't help but admire the human spirit, even if they didn't win. The second phase, strategic maneuvering, would prove to be a different challenge. Varnock believed this would showcase the Zarnak's strengths. As they set up the course, he reviewed the plans with his officers. They would need to outsmart the humans, and he felt confident they could do so. When the signal was given, both ships began moving through a complex course, filled with obstacles and traps. The Zarnak flagship executed precise maneuvers, demonstrating their tactical training. The Wild Goose, on the other hand, appeared to embrace unpredictability. It zigzagged around obstacles, laughing at the course like it was a playful game. Varnock watched intently as the 2 ships navigated the course, his heart pounding with anticipation. He noticed that while the Zarnak ship moved with disciplined precision, the humans adapted quickly, using their absurd design to slip through narrow gaps and avoid traps. It was infuriating and fascinating all at once. In a final move, the Zarnak flagship made a risky maneuver to cut off the Wild Goose, but the human ship spun out of reach at the last moment. The crowd gasped, and the Zarnak stared in disbelief as the Wild Goose completed the course just seconds behind them. "Let's give them a chance," Varnock said, his voice steady. "It's only fair." His officers grumbled but nodded in agreement. As they moved to the final phase, simulated battle, the atmosphere became tense. Both crews took their positions, the humans and Zarnaks ready to face off. Varnock felt a surge of adrenaline. He was both anxious and excited about the outcome. The battle began, and the ships exchanged fire in a simulated environment. Varnock quickly realized that the humans approached this challenge with an unusual strategy. They blended cooperation with chaos, working together while still maintaining their wild, unpredictable nature. In a surprising turn, the Wild Goose managed to outmaneuver the Zarnak ship, using its agility to dodge fire and counterattack. Varnock watched in awe as the humans used every absurd aspect of their ship to their advantage, making the Zarnok officers look rigid and predictable. By the end of the simulated battle, both crews were exhausted, but the humans were celebrating, full of laughter and excitement. Varnock stepped forward to congratulate them, his heart racing. "Well fought, Captain Harris. Your crew has proven to be formidable opponents," he said, unable to hide his respect. "Thank you, Commander. That was a blast." Harris grinned, clearly thrilled with the outcome. "You Zarnoks put up a great fight." As the two captains shook hands, Varnock felt a strange bond forming between them. Despite their differences, they were learning from each other, both recognizing that there was strength in diversity. Commander Varnock realized that humanity, with its absurd warship and unconventional ways, had much to teach him about resilience and creativity. This competition had not only been a test of skill, but also an exploration of understanding between two very different cultures. With the challenge behind them, Varnock looked to the future with a sense of optimism. This was not the end, but the beginning of a new alliance, one where they could share their strengths and learn from each other. Little did he know, this friendship would lead them to face challenges that neither could imagine. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknowns, but together they would navigate it, ready to face whatever came their way. The unforeseen alliance. As the excitement from the competition settled, Commander Varnock and Captain Harris found themselves in a conversation that would change the course of their respective destinies. The atmosphere was charged with newfound respect and curiosity as they shared stories about their worlds and their people. "Your crew is quite something, Captain," Varnock began, his tone more personal than before. "I never expected to learn so much from an absurd warship like the Wild Goose." Harris chuckled, his eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "Well, the design does raise eyebrows, doesn't it? But it's a reflection of who we are, resourceful, innovative, and sometimes a bit chaotic. We've had to adapt to survive in this universe." Varnock nodded, considering Harris's words. "Your adaptability is impressive. It's a quality we Zarnoks value, but we often stick to tradition. Maybe we need to learn from you." The conversation flowed effortlessly, and Varnock found himself sharing stories about the Zarnok fleet's impressive history. He spoke of battles won and lost, of honor and valor, and the importance of maintaining their traditions. Harris listened intently, nodding as Varnock spoke. As they conversed, a realization struck Varnock. Humanity's strength lay not only in their adaptability, but also in their capacity for cooperation. The Zarnok fleet, while powerful, had grown rigid over time. They were excellent in combat, but lacked the creative spirit that the humans embodied. "What if we combined our strengths?" Harris suggested suddenly, leaning forward. "Imagine what we could accomplish together. We could train together, share tactics, and explore new strategies." Varnock paused, contemplating the idea. "An alliance? It's not something we Zarnoks have ever considered with another species." "Exactly," Harris exclaimed. "But think of the possibilities. We could learn from each other and face threats together. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Why not stand united?" The commander felt a spark of excitement at the prospect. A union between the Zarnoks and humans could mean a new chapter in their histories. He envisioned fleets working side by side, sharing resources, strategies, and knowledge. It could change everything. "Let's present this idea to our fleets," Varnock agreed. "We can conduct joint training exercises, combining our strengths and learning from our differences." "Perfect," Harris replied, his face lighting up. "I'll speak with my crew, and we can arrange a formal meeting with both our fleets." With their plans set in motion, Varnock and Harris returned to their ships, eager to present the idea to their crews. The excitement was palpable, and both captains felt a sense of urgency to forge this new alliance. As they gathered their crews for the meeting, Varnock stood in front of the Zarnok officers. He could feel their skepticism as he introduced the concept of cooperation with the humans. "I know this is unconventional," he began, choosing his words carefully. But our recent competition has shown me that we can learn from humanity. They bring a unique perspective and adaptability that we could greatly benefit from. I propose we join forces, conducting joint training exercises to strengthen both our fleets. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the crowd. Reluk stepped forward, frowning. Commander, are you suggesting we share our strategies with them? What if they use it against us? Varnak held up a hand, calming his officers. I understand your concerns, but think about what we could achieve together. Our strengths and their creativity could lead to unprecedented results. We can enhance our combat skills and adapt to new threats. Hesitation hung in the air, but a few officers began to nod, intrigued by the prospect of collaboration. After a tense moment, Reluk crossed his arms and sighed. I suppose if we can show them how it's done, it could be beneficial. Exactly, Varnak replied, a hint of a smile crossing his face. We can teach them our ways while they teach us theirs. This is an opportunity to grow stronger. On the human side, Captain Harris faced a different challenge. The Wild Goose crew gathered in their main deck, animatedly discussing the idea. Harris stood before them, passionate and hopeful. Listen up, everyone, he called out, trying to grab their attention. We've been given an incredible opportunity to work alongside the Zarnuks. They'd want to forge an alliance and train with us. This could change everything for humanity. The crew exchanged excited glances, but some were skeptical. Do we really need them? One officer piped up. We've done well on our own. Harris shook his head. We've been successful, yes, but there's so much we can learn from them. The Zarnuks are skilled fighters, and their technology is advanced. This alliance could mean safety and strength for our future. Gradually, the crew's excitement built. The prospect of training with the Zarnuks sparked their imagination. They could learn new strategies and enhance their capabilities. Finally, one officer raised his hand, a broad grin on his face. I'm in. Let's show those Zarnuks what humans can do. The room erupted in cheers, and Harris felt a surge of pride. This alliance was not just about strategy. It was about hope and unity, two forces that could change the universe. Days later, the two fleets gathered at a neutral location, a vast, empty space in the galaxy where they could hold their joint exercises. Varnak and Harris stood side by side on the command deck, looking out at the ships. This is it, Varnak said, a hint of nervous excitement in his voice. Our fleets are ready. We need to make a strong first impression. Agreed, Harris replied. Let's show them what we can accomplish together. The first exercise was a joint maneuvering drill, where the Zarnuk flagship and the Wild Goose would operate together. As the ships moved through their routines, the crews learned to communicate and adapt to each other's styles. Varnak watched as the humans showcased their unique approach to maneuvering. They employed unexpected tactics, moving with a creativity that amazed him. Meanwhile, the Zarnuks provided structure and discipline, ensuring that the operation was efficient. With each exercise, the bond between the two crews deepened. They shared laughter and camaraderie, slowly breaking down the barriers between them. Varnak began to see Harris not just as a commander but as a friend, a partner in this venture. As the exercises continued, the crews grew more confident in their abilities to work together. They learned to appreciate their differences, finding ways to complement each other's strengths. Varnak felt a growing sense of hope for their future as allies. But little did they know, their newfound alliance would soon face a test far greater than any training exercise. In the depths of space, a looming threat was preparing to strike, one that would challenge everything they had built together. Shadows of war. As the joint exercises continued, the atmosphere among the crews of the Zarnuk and human fleets was filled with excitement and camaraderie. However, beneath this newfound friendship, a darker presence lurked in the depths of space, unnoticed by the Allied forces. One quiet evening, as Captain Harris reviewed the day's training logs aboard the Wild Goose, a sudden alert blared through the ship. The lights flickered, casting a red glow across the control room. Captain, we're receiving an urgent transmission. shouted Lieutenant Mira, her fingers flying over the controls. Harris's heart raced as he turned to face her. What's the source? Unknown. It appears to be coming from an asteroid field nearby, she replied, her voice tinged with concern. Patch it through, he ordered, his mind racing with possibilities. The screen flickered, revealing the grainy image of the Zarnuk officer. Captain Harris. This is Commander Varnuk. We need to talk. There's been a sighting of an enemy fleet in the vicinity. They're heading our way. Harris's stomach dropped. What enemy? Do we know their affiliation? Varnuk's face was tense. Preliminary scans indicate they are part of the Krex Coalition, a group known for their ruthlessness. They've been expanding their territory, and now they've turned their sights on our alliance. What are their numbers? Harris asked, urgency in his voice. They outnumber us 3-1, Varnuk replied. But their ships are less advanced. We may have a chance if we strategize together. Understood. I'll gather my officers, Harris said, his mind racing with possible tactics. As he gathered his crew in the war room, Harris could feel the weight of the moment. Listen up, everyone. We have a situation. The Krex Coalition is on the move, and they're targeting our alliance. We need to be prepared. The room buzzed with tension as officers exchanged worried glances. What's the plan? Lieutenant Mira asked, her expression serious. Harris took a deep breath. We need to use our strengths. The Zarnuks have superior technology, but we've got creativity and adaptability on our side. Let's merge our tactics and devise a strategy that takes advantage of our differences. Meanwhile, on the Zarnuk flagship, Varnuk faced his own crew, who were filled with anxiety. We've trained hard, but now we face a real enemy. The Krex Coalition is not to be underestimated. They thrive on chaos and will exploit any weakness. Commander Relok stepped forward, his brow furrowed. How do we counter their numbers? We can't afford to fight them head-on without a plan. Varnuk nodded, recognizing the gravity of the situation. We will rely on guerrilla tactics. We know the terrain better, and we can use it to our advantage. Our first priority is to gather intelligence on their movements. We must strike quickly and decisively. As both crews prepared for battle, the mood shifted from camaraderie to determination. They understood that their partnership would be crucial in facing the impending threat. Hours later, as the Zarnuk and human fleets positioned themselves in the asteroid field, tension hung in the air. Harris stood beside Varnuk on the command deck, both commanders scanning the monitors for any sign of the enemy. Remember, we need to lure them into the asteroids, Harris reminded. Once they're within the field, we can use hit-and-run tactics to exploit their weaknesses. Varnuk grunted in agreement, his eyes focused. The Zarnuk ships are equipped with cloaking technology. We can hide our movements and surprise them when they least expect it. Suddenly, the sensors lit up with blaring alarms. Captain, we've detected multiple ships approaching. Lieutenant Mira shouted, panic in her voice. Harris's heart raced as he leaned closer to the monitor. Are they the Krex ships? Confirmed. At least 20 ships on our scanners, she replied, her fingers flying across the controls. Let's move into position, Harris commanded, adrenaline coursing through him. Zarnuk fleet, prepare to engage. As the enemy fleet entered the asteroid field, chaos erupted. Harris and Varnuk's ships maneuvered swiftly through the rocks, their crews working in perfect synchrony. The Zarnuks utilized their advanced weapons, while the humans employed unpredictable tactics, darting in and out of the asteroids to confuse the enemy. The first wave of Krex ships fell victim to their strategy. The humans and Zarnuks launched coordinated attacks, striking with precision and retreating into the shadows of the asteroids. Excellent work, Varnuk shouted over the comms. Let's keep up the pressure. But just as they gained momentum, the Krex fleet began to adapt. They formed a tighter formation, using their numbers to their advantage, closing in on the Allied forces. Captain, they're adjusting their tactics, Mira warned. They're trying to surround us. "Break formation. Scatter," Harris yelled, his heart pounding. "We need to divide their forces." In the midst of the chaos, Varnok's ship took heavy fire. The commander watched in horror as one of his ships was engulfed in flames, its crew lost to the onslaught. "Varnok, we need to regroup," Harris called out, worry creeping into his voice. "Understood. We're falling back to the edge of the asteroid field," Varnok replied, determination in his eyes. "But we won't give up. We will fight together." The Allied forces retreated, using the asteroid field to their advantage. They planned their next moves carefully, hoping to turn the tide of battle. As they caught their breath, Harris looked at Varnok, his expression resolute. "We can't let them break our alliance. We've come too far." Varnok nodded, steeling himself. "Agreed. Together, we will find a way to defeat them." With renewed determination, the crews regrouped, ready to face the shadows of war that loomed ahead. The turning point. As the remnants of the Allied fleets regrouped in the shadowy depths of the asteroid field, a heavy silence fell over the command decks. Captain Harris and Commander Varnok exchanged glances, each grappling with the losses they had suffered. Their forces were battered, but the spirit of cooperation remained strong. "Captain, we need to devise a new strategy," Lieutenant Mira said, her brow furrowed with concern. "The Kreks are adapting quickly. If we keep fighting like this, we'll lose everything." Harris nodded, feeling the weight of his responsibilities. "You're right. We need to lure them into a trap, one that exploits their numbers against them." Varnok stepped forward, his demeanor resolute. "I have an idea. If we can create a diversion, we might draw their forces into a vulnerable position. The Zarnok ships can use their cloaking technology to mask our movements while the humans engage them from another angle." "Let's do it," Harris said, his voice steady. "Mira, coordinate the diversion with the Zarnoks. We'll need to time this perfectly." As the officers set to work, the atmosphere shifted from despair to determination. Each member of the crew understood the importance of their mission. The success of the plan depended on their unity and skill. Hours passed as they prepared. With the asteroid field as their backdrop, the Allied forces set the stage for their daring plan. Harris and Varnok divided the remaining ships, each taking on specific roles. The Zarnoks would initiate the diversion, creating a chaotic display of lights and decoys to mislead the Kreks. Meanwhile, the humans would lie in wait, ready to strike. Finally, the moment arrived. "Commander Varnok, are your ships ready?" Harris asked, his heart racing. "Ready on my signal," Varnok replied, his eyes narrowed in concentration. As the Kreks fleet approached, Varnok's ships activated their cloaking devices, slipping into the darkness. The humans held their positions, tension building as they awaited the call to action. "Now," Varnok shouted. His ships burst forth from their hiding places, launching a series of decoys that illuminated the dark void of space. The false targets shimmered brightly, drawing the Kreks forces' attention. "Engage," Harris commanded, his voice cutting through the din of alarms. With renewed vigor, the human fleet surged forward, taking advantage of the confusion among the Kreks ships. They darted in and out of the asteroid field, striking the enemy with calculated precision. "Focus fire on the ships to the left," Mira shouted, her hands flying over the controls. "They're isolated." The Allied forces executed their strategy flawlessly. One by one, Kreks ships fell prey to the onslaught, their formations crumbling as the humans and Zarnoks worked together seamlessly. "Keep up the pressure," Harris urged, adrenaline fueling his determination. "We can turn the tide of this battle." But just as victory seemed within reach, a wave of reinforcements appeared on the horizon. An entire fleet of Kreks warships, larger and more menacing than the first wave. Harris felt his heart sink. "Captain, we're outnumbered again," Mira shouted, panic rising in her voice. "Stay focused," Harris barked. "We've come this far. We can't back down now." "Commander Varnok, we need to retreat," one of the Zarnok officers urged. "We can regroup and fight another day." Varnak gritted his teeth, unwilling to accept defeat. No, we have the advantage of surprise. We must fight while we still can. Harris exchanged a glance with Varnak, both commanders understanding the weight of their decision. We'll hold our ground, he declared, the resolve in his voice firm. We'll fight together until the end. The Allied forces braced themselves for the oncoming wave of Krek's warships, their determination unwavering. As the enemy ships closed in, Harris noticed a flash on the edge of his vision. A stray asteroid had shifted, creating a narrow path between the Kreks and the Allied fleets. Mira, can we use that? He shouted, pointing toward the gap. It's risky, but we can maneuver through it, she replied, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Let's do it, Harris commanded. We'll split their forces. Zarnuk ships, follow my lead. With a boldness that surprised even him, Harris led his fleet toward the narrow passage, his heart racing as they plunged through the rocky debris. The Krek ships, caught off guard, struggled to adjust their formations, giving the Allies a crucial advantage. Now, flank them from both sides, Varnak shouted, urging his ships into action. The Allied forces surged forward, emerging from the narrow path with newfound determination. The surprise attack left the Kreks disoriented, and the Allied fleets struck with precision and ferocity. Fire, take out their command ship, Harris commanded, pointing at the largest Kreks vessel. With a powerful volley of energy blasts, the Allied forces targeted the enemy's command ship, and the Kreks ship began to falter. The tide of battle began to turn. The Kreks ships, realizing they were losing control, attempted to regroup. But the humans and Zarnuks pressed forward, relentless in their pursuit. As the battle raged on, Harris felt a surge of hope. They were fighting for their survival, for their alliance, and for the future of their worlds. United in purpose, the Allied fleets proved that even the most absurd warship could defy the odds when driven by courage and cooperation. Amid the chaos, the sound of explosions and shouts filled the void of space. The tide had shifted, but the outcome of this fierce battle still hung in the balance. The war was far from over, and the Allied forces would need every ounce of strength to face the challenges that lay ahead. New dawn. The battlefield lay in a haze of smoke and debris, remnants of what had been a fierce clash. As the dust settled, the Allied forces stood victorious. The Krek's fleet had been driven back, their once mighty ships reduced to twisted metal drifting in the void. Captain Harris and Commander Varnak took a moment to absorb the magnitude of their triumph. "Captain, we did it," Mira exclaimed, her voice filled with disbelief and joy. Harris couldn't help but smile. "Yes, we did. But this victory is just the beginning." As they began to assess the aftermath, the toll of battle became clear. Ships from both sides lay damaged, and many lives had been lost. Yet, amidst the destruction, the spirit of cooperation shone through. The Zarnuks moved among the human ships, offering assistance and sharing resources. It was a powerful testament to their newfound alliance. "Captain," Varnak said, his voice serious, "we need to strengthen our forces. The Kreks will not give up easily. They will return with greater numbers." Harris nodded. "I agree. Let's call a council meeting with the Zarnuk leaders and discuss our next steps. We need a united front." As the leaders gathered in the command center of Harris's ship, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of relief and determination. The holographic display flickered to life, showcasing the map of the sector and the positions of the remaining Kreks forces. "Thank you for gathering so swiftly," Harris began, addressing the assembled leaders. "Today, we achieved a significant victory. However, we must remain vigilant. The Kreks will not let this defeat go unpunished." One of the Zarnuk leaders, a tall, graceful figure named Leora, stepped forward. "Our forces suffered losses as well. We will need to replenish our ships and strengthen our technology. Perhaps we can share our advancements in cloaking technology with your engineers. Together, we can create a more formidable defense." "That's an excellent idea," Harris replied, feeling the hope in the room. We can also share intelligence and coordinate our fleets more effectively. The Kreks may think they have the upper hand, but together we can prove them wrong. The discussion continued late into the night, ideas flowing as they forged new strategies and plans for cooperation. They knew that unity would be their greatest strength, and each leader was determined to protect their worlds. As the meeting concluded, Harris felt a sense of camaraderie that he hadn't experienced before. They were no longer just allies by necessity. They were friends, bound by a shared purpose. In the days that followed, the Allied forces worked tirelessly to repair their ships and fortify their defenses. Harris and Varnok's crews collaborated seamlessly, sharing technology and strategies, and their bond grew stronger with each passing day. One morning, as Harris stood on the observation deck, watching the shipyards come to life with activity, he felt a wave of pride wash over him. Humanity, often underestimated, had risen to the occasion, showcasing their ingenuity and resilience. "Mira," he called, as she approached him. "Do you remember the Kreks' first attack? We thought we were facing certain defeat." "Yes," she replied, a smile creeping onto her face. "But we turned it around. We've shown them that we won't back down." Harris turned his gaze back to the shipyards. "I believe we're just getting started. The Kreks underestimated us, and we need to show them the true strength of our alliance." As if on cue, a message came through from the Zarnok leaders. "Captain Harris, we have received word that the Kreks are regrouping. They are planning a counterattack on the planet Darnok. We need to mobilize our forces immediately." "Let's move," Harris said, adrenaline surging through him. "We'll show them what we're made of." The Allied fleets quickly assembled, their ships gliding through space like a well-rehearsed symphony. Harris felt a rush of confidence as he took command. They were no longer a ragtag group of forces. They were a united front, ready to face whatever the Kreks threw at them. As they approached the planet, the Kreks ships were already waiting, their ominous silhouettes darkening the stars. But this time, the Allied forces were prepared. With enhanced strategies and united determination, they'd launched their assault. "Engage," Harris shouted, his heart racing as the ships began their coordinated attack. The initial clash echoed through space, but the humans and Zarnoks fought as one, their movements synchronized and powerful. The battle raged on, but the tide had shifted. Each ship maneuvered with purpose, exploiting weaknesses in the Kreks formations. Harris watched as his crew executed their strategies flawlessly, their training and teamwork shining through. "Keep pushing," Varnok yelled over the comms. "They are faltering. We can break them." With renewed vigor, the Allied forces pressed forward, and one by one, the Kreks ships began to fall. Harris felt a sense of exhilaration as they fought for their survival, the spirit of humanity and cooperation blazing brightly. As the last Kreks ship exploded in a brilliant display of light, a cheer erupted from the Allied fleets. They had not only defended Darnok, they had delivered a powerful message to the Kreks. Humanity was not to be underestimated. In the aftermath of the battle, as they surveyed the wreckage and celebrated their victory, Harris knew that this was only the beginning. Their alliance had proven that strength lay in unity, and together they would face whatever challenges awaited them in the galaxy. With hope in their hearts and determination in their souls, the Allied forces stood ready for whatever came next. They were more than just ships and soldiers. They were a beacon of resilience and courage in a universe that often seemed dark and uncertain. And as Harris looked out into the stars, he felt a sense of peace. Humanity had not only survived, they had thrived, proving that even the most absurd warship could be a symbol of hope in the vast expanse of space.